Hello class, this is Professor Morrison and this is your presentation regarding the process essay and writing process analysis. A process essay explains either how to do something or how something occurs. Every recipe that's ever been written is a process essay. It is one of the few times that we are allowed to address the reader directly and let them know how to do things step by step or how things are done step by step. When we write about a process, we need to stay in chronological order. If you're explaining how something happens, explain the order in which it happens. If you're explaining how to do something, people need to be able to follow your instructions in the order that you gave them. We need to use clear transitions like first, next, and meanwhile. And if there are any tips that people need to know before they try to do what you're telling them to do, we need to give those first. So here again are the two types of process writing. Instructions are for when people really want to know how to do something. Sometimes this is even called how-to writing. So again, a recipe, a handout, an operating manual, anything on WikiHow, these are all examples of process writing. We use the imperative mood, like first do this and then do this, and we can actually even use the word you, which is normally forbidden in academic writing. With a process explanation, you're not telling someone how to do something as much as you're explaining how it happens. So you can use first person and explain how you did something, or third person to explain how something happens in general, but we would not use second person or imperative mood. It could be in present tense or past tense, but we should stay consistent depending on which tense is appropriate. Are we explaining a process that takes place regularly or one that only happened in the past? Or did I do it or did someone else do it? So here are some different examples of those tenses and first person, third person choices. So you can pick the one that's right for what you're writing and then stick with it all the way through. So if it's something I did myself, and it's something I'm going to keep doing, a habitual process, then I would use first person present tense. After I place the chemicals in the tray, I turn out the lights in the dark room. Or if it's something that I did once just to learn how to do it and I don't expect to do it again, I could use first person past tense. After I placed the chemicals in the tray, I turned out the lights in the dark room. Well, what if I didn't do it? What if someone else did it? And it's something they do all the time. Then I would use third person present tense. After photographers place the chemicals in the tray, they turn out the lights in the dark room. Or what if it's something that someone else did, but only once in the past, and I was there to observe and to report about it? Then I could say, after the photographer placed the chemicals in the tray, she turned out the lights in the dark room. Either way, we're going to be consistent in person and tense. We use process writing for different classes in college. You may be asked to explain a process in history or science or government or even literature. How did the writer achieve this goal, right? Or you might even be writing for yourself, like a makeup tutorial, or you can make a video on YouTube and explain how to change a flat tire or something like that. We also use process writing to persuade or inform, but we always have a clear thesis statement no matter what we're writing. And in process, this thesis statement should identify our process and why it is performed. So when you plan a process essay, please keep your reader's needs in mind. You need to explain the reasons for performing steps, If there's unfamiliar materials or equipment involved, describe it, make sure they have it, define any terms they may not know, warn readers of possible problems they may encounter, don't have any surprises, and avoid those unnecessary shifts in tense, person, voice, and mood. Using transitions is really important in every kind of writing, but especially process, because people may be trying to understand a process or trying to do what you've told them to do. And they need to know when to do things first, second, while this is happening, at the same time, when you've finished, finally, be specific. The structure of the process essay is very similar to other essays, but we want to make sure that in our thesis, which is always the last sentence of the introduction, we're identifying the process and why it's important. Before we get to the thesis, we really need to make sure that the reader knows what materials or preliminary steps are needed. In the body of the essay, make sure you have one major stage of the process in each body paragraph. Each stage may and should involve several steps. So if you're talking about baking a cake, you probably want to have, the ingredients being put together in one stage, the baking and any other steps that are taken, like to prepare the decorations in the second stage. And in the third stage, you're actually decorating and serving the cake. There are going to be different steps in each stage, and that's good because it gives you something to write about in each body paragraph. In your conclusion, remember nothing new ever goes in the conclusion, it's just summary. So you will briefly review the major stages, and then you will definitely say what the result should be like. It should look like this, it should work like this. It's very important to know how to do this because, and reinforce the reader for following through the process. When you revise your process essay, make sure that you knew that you were supposed to provide either a set of instructions or process explanation and that you did this. Make sure your writing style clearly and consistently indicates whether you're writing a set of instructions or a process explanation, so there's no guessing about what's going on. Make sure you have a clearly stated thesis that identifies the process and why it's important. Make sure that you have all necessary reminders and cautions, all the necessary steps in strict chronological order, and transitions to clearly indicate where one step ends and the next begins. Then you can edit what you're going to keep and make sure that everything is formatted as per MLA guidelines. If you have any questions, please make sure to email me. I'm right here.